Tuesday, and welcome to MyStockScanner Live. We dive into the numbers, we cut through the noise, and we test today's most interesting stocks with our three guiding question. Does the stock have a quality? Does it have an upside? And is now the right timing? These two gents next to me, Liam Flavelle and Hans-Henrik Nielsen, those are the guys with the answers. That means that I get to ask the questions. That's a good way we have solved this a little riddle about the three of us. Hans-Henrik, the 3-point playbook portfolio sits at minus 2.1%. We had a buy and a sell yesterday. We're not going to tell you the buy. You have to be a member to be privy to that information. But the sell was an Italian defense stock. If I look at the defense right now, it looks like they're in positive yesterday. What happened? Why did we sell Leonardo?
Yeah, well, apparently the world doesn't need weapons, so no one actually knows. It's a good stock, and it broke through our stop loss, and therefore it had to go. Then, of course, it's going up today. That is kind of the law of nature here.
But it's again, it's about sticking to your strategy, and we're going to show you what happens if you had hung on to a stock that broke that law and how it continued downwards. Liam, if we look at the software stocks at the moment in the US, it seems like they are in a sort of back and forth situation, but there was a little bit of shimmer of light yesterday for Salesforce, ServiceNow, and a lot of the other software stocks, whereas the Max 7 got a beating again. What's going on in the tech sector?
I think a lot of it on the tech sector is looking at AI, and my picture seems to have frozen. Can I still see? Yeah, looking at AI. So the companies that are involved in the big frontier models like Microsoft and Google and Meta and companies like that are all suffering because everyone's thinking, well, where's the return on investment? That's not a new story. The flip side of it is the software stocks have all been really beaten up because of the AI threat. And I think people are starting to go bottom fishing maybe, and just seeing what they can pick up.
I see a headline all the time in financial news right now, which is buy the dip, and people are careful. But that's, of course, to do with the geopolitical situation. And of course, that plays in. If you read Hans-Henrik's the market scan every morning, you will be sort of in on that. It's being published just before 9 o'clock in the morning, and it's sort of a helicopter view of what's going on in the market. And as said, Trump is playing his role in it. There's a potential end to the Iran conflict, at least according to Trump and his aides. But the markets say not so fast, and Iran strikes an oil tanker in the Dubai Harbour. We are asking you in regards to a ceasefire prediction in our Tuesday poll. We talk about upgrade for Novo, and Netcompany is moving up. But the pace seems to be another one in Norway. Yesterday, the index went up by 3% up there, thanks to Norsk Hydro, Kongsberg, and Equinor. And because it's Tuesday, we're going to be talking tech. Micron again will be the center of attention, and also Meta and Google because of a verdict in a court case against them. But we start with number of today, 22.8 million, has something to do with the World Cup in football, and maybe a little bit about being Irish as well. Who knows? We'll get to that later in the show. But Hans-Henrik, let's start with the macro side of it. This guy in the middle kind of said something yesterday that, or during the night, that was by his aides being referred to as there is a possible end to the Iran war, even if the Strait of Hormuz is not open. Or how am I to understand it?
That was a really weird rumor, or I'm not sure where it came from, but it was that he might be willing to close down the attack of the Iran, even if the Hormuz stayed closed. That could be read like he wanted to actually start the ceasefire himself and then be willing to negotiate about the Hormuz. Could also be read like, yeah, well, I started a war now. It's all going to shit basically, and now I'm dragging our troops home, and you can fix my mess. We don't know what it is, and looking at the markets, it's not really reacting.
No, and Iran is not reacting as they're supposed to do, according to Trump, in that sense that they just struck a fully laden Kuwait oil tanker in the Dubai port.
It can't be them. Trump said they were completely beaten. No, it's just a mess down there. And yesterday we got a trading advice from the leader of the parliament in Iran, He said to all traders in the West, we should just trade the opposite of what Trump said. That would be a sure thing. And I don't know. It was not on my in my book for this year that I should take trading advice from the head of Iranian parliament, but there we go.
Well, who knows?
Baron Trump instead.
Yeah, now we need like a Pelosi tracker. We need a tracker on the Iranian parliament as well. But this guy, we can definitely take a tracker on, because he's in the know in that sense, that Powell, the head of the FED in the US, the Feds. And Liam, I'm going to come to you on this one, because normally he sort of reserves the rights to tell what Feds are doing to the meeting that's set for it. But in an interview yesterday, he kind of flipped a card that said, interest might come down.
Yeah, I think what he actually said was, I've got no bloody idea what's going to happen. So, and actually, I'm out of here soon, potentially, or not, as the case may be. You never know. We look at government bonds. That's what they control in the Fed. Effectively, that's their big weapon to either stimulate the economy to produce more jobs, or to understimulate it, to actually put a brake on it, to actually stop inflation from rising too much. And you can see here that the interest rates have been rising. They peaked a couple of days ago, up almost 5% for the 20-year, and almost 5% for the 30-year as well, which is the percentage you pay. So I think a lot has gone into people coming out and saying, okay, we need to calm this down, because what this effectively means is that US government is paying probably 0.5% more on their debt, which is trillions and trillions, than they were a few days ago. And this is all as a result of the war. It comes in about the 2nd of March and shoots straight up. So this is a play really on people trusting the Fed, trusting the US government. They're not just going to print money, and trusting whether there's any inflation coming down the seam from this war. And he's saying, Powell at the moment, saying, actually, we're a little bit more worried about jobs than we are about inflation right now. So we're not sure where the interest rates are going to go.
And at the same time, I'm going to ask both of you on this one, because really, he doesn't have that many tools in his toolbox. He might be a bright guy, but there's a limit to what he can do, right?
I think the tools are actually in the White House at the moment. So,
he basically had one tool, and that is the interest rate. He can lower or hike, and I completely agree with Liam that he might want to give a bit of a neutral level playing field to his to the next Fed chair that comes on here in a month and a half or something like that. But they are in big trouble, because we are looking into a potential stagflation scenario, meaning with both low growth in the economy and high inflation rate, which means they should, in theory, both hike and cut rates at the same time, which of course is not possible. So they're a bit in trouble.
They're between a rock and a hard place at the moment. And there's no doubt that if they had any influence on the Tuesday poll, where we're going to ask you in our various Facebook groups, when do you think the war is going to end? They would love that the war ended as soon as possible, because that, of course, is going to move the market in a more positive direction. And we're going to put it out in a poll in Aktiesnak for alle. We're going to put it in Stock Chat for everyone, and of course our members. I would like to ask you guys, Liam, when do you think we're going to have a ceasefire?
Is that going to? I suspect everyone's starting to hurt at the moment. Every single country is probably on the phone to him every single day saying, we can't survive for much longer in the shape we're going to cause a global recession. The yields are a massive issue, and Trump has retreated 4 or 5 times in the last year at this level. So I think he'll try and push for one as soon as possible.
I'm gonna cut you off, Liam, because you're not going to run for parliament, because you're just like a politician now. You're simply not answering the question.
That is one of the nastiest things you've ever said to me.
Yeah, I know. I could have said you were Irish, but listen.
I suspect the next 4 to 6 weeks, something like that.
4 to 6 weeks. Hans-Henrik, you have Polymarket up, and they are, of course, a prediction site, and you can win money on playing on various days.
Yeah, just to say quickly, the reason why we ask of this is not to bring in politics in it. It's simply because it is so important, and we can see that every time Trump have come out with things that then seem to be a taco, like we are now dealing with or negotiating with Iran, then all the markets turn around. So it is a very high interest of us when will this stop. Of course, our members, even though they are smart and everything, they don't know. And I agree with Liam. I think I have a suspicion that they will put some boots on the ground, which will make it, if they don't, it will be a ceasefire within a month and a half. If they put boots on the ground, it's sometimes in the autumn.
Okay, there we go. That was an answer. That was not it took a while,
painful.
But we got that.
Yeah,
It was painful. But I'm glad that we're asking our members and people in our Facebook groups instead of asking the two of you. But that was impossible to get an answer. On the other hand, we have a news story and that broke this morning on a financial site in Denmark, and says that there was a upgrade for Novo Nordic. In that sense, it was a big bank. And Hans-Henrik, let's take that little piece of news and say, how much was it they were upgraded?
Oh, it was massive. It was 3 Danish kroner. They moved the target, so it was a bit more than 1%. Which
up or down?
Yeah,
it was up.
Just. It's a good learning lesson here, a good lesson for people here, because some people, especially new investors, when they see a big breaking news headlines, they jump on a trade and say, oh, I want to get into Vestas or Novo or Carlsberg or whatever. Take a deep breath, look at how the market reacts, because it might not be a big deal. It might be a huge thing. But right now, Novo is a bit down as far as I can tell. Is that 0.7 down? So that massive upgrade in target of 3 Danish kroner didn't do much.
No, and let's talk more Danish, because Vestas is up 4.4% today, demand up 3.3%. Those are the leaders, but it's nothing compared to what Netcompany did yesterday. And Hans-Henrik, Netcompany has been in our portfolio. It's not there at the moment, but a 6.7 uptick yesterday. Could that make them a buy for us?
Oh yes, I am very interested in rebuying it. If we're just taking a quick look at the 3-point playbook, we have looked at it before. We also, I think, had it in a face-off some weeks ago, but it's a good quality company. They've had a bit of a rocky path here, but the estimates are good. Revenue is going up. Return on capital is going fairly even here. Free cash flow is good. I have moved the price earnings down here a bit in our value chart, but still very good potential. For some reason, I'm not sure what they have been drinking, the analysts, but they're not happy. 3% here. We don't care too much what they think on this behalf with the targets. So there's a good upside. We were in it from here to around here, made a small profit, and well, then we don't know if we sold up here and we didn't know if it would continue. I would love to get into it again, maybe with a little retracement here and then a bounce. Then I would be interested.
So far, in regards to Danish stock Netcompany that we are taking a look at, I know that we have a little pain that we need to talk about, because that's the only way that you get through it, right, Liam? It's Tech Tuesday, and Micron is our little pain, understood in that way that it was a stock that we have been in, I think it's 3 or 4 times now. We've gone in and out. We had profits on it, and we have taken losses on it. But if we talk strategy, what happened to Micron yesterday is exactly why we have a strategy and why we get out of stocks when they break our limits.
It is indeed. I mean, we had a stock that we sold last week that we what was it, Norsk Hydro, wasn't it? That broke our rules and then very quickly bounced and shot back up. Micron is another one that we got out of somewhere around here, something like that, and it's carried on going down. So we tend to give it some wiggle room around here, maybe sort of get to the point where it breaks a resistance or a support point and and fails or doesn't sort of quite bounce back up. In this case, Micron carried on back down. I think it was around 10% yesterday, wasn't it? And
exactly 9.88.
So the two things, I wrote about it last week and we talked about it on one of the shows last week. So Google have come out with with a new algorithm that actually reduces the amount of memory that's required for the GPUs that's being used at the moment. That's open source, so everyone can use it. So effectively, the big build-up in Micron and SanDisk and all the others were, they're going to need more storage and more memory to store things for AI in its brain or right next to its CPU or GPU, so that it can calculate things that much quicker. And as soon as you hear they might need half as much memory as they did last Tuesday, then suddenly the whole case for Micron sort of starts looking a bit more difficult to get past an investor. There's still a massive demand for memory, and the new type of memory, the high bandwidth memory that these guys are all producing. So I think potentially this is slightly overdone, but I also think the other side is everyone's looking for the exit at the moment and saying we need to go into cash. These sort of long plays, we've had a good run for the last year. Let's go and park our money somewhere else a bit safer.
We're going to talk about what to do in crisis, and this is part of the crisis that we have right now, because money is sort of it acts a little bit scared. But also now you mentioned Google. Let's talk about Google and Meta, who lost a lawsuit last week, and it seems like a groggy boxer in that sense that they can't really shake that punch that they had. The numbers keep going down. Liam, is there no bottom for Meta and Google in that case?
There will be. I mean, the bottom of in the worst case scenario, would be zero, I guess, for some of these companies. But I don't expect Meta or Google to quite go to those lows.
It could go down 1,500% though.
They could do, in which case they'd be giving us back a lot of money. So if you look at Google, just sort of flipping between the two very quickly, but you've got a quality score of 99. You can see the earnings are going in a nice direction. The PEG ratio is slightly high for us. We normally want it below 2.5, but everything else is a sea of green on over here, and the returns on investment are doing really well, and the free cash flow. If we look at Meta, slightly different story, still very high quality, still earnings per share are going up and up and up. The PEG ratio shows us it could be a better opportunity in certain respects, and they've still got some free cash flow even though they're spending so much of it. But if we flip over to the valuation, we can see, actually let's just reset that, we can see that actually the stock has got a huge upside, and analysts actually think there's a pretty decent upside to it now. Whether we've seen the bottom or not, we're sort of at the place where the stock bottomed out last April, and a few times over the years. So this could be a bounce and a good opportunity for Meta. So it's one that from an undervaluation point of view, Meta looks pretty good. From an Alphabet point of view, they haven't suffered as much because effectively Meta, most of their, they had a big lawsuit last week between Google and Meta lost, and the courts in the US basically said you're producing an electronic addictive product and you're doing it and you knew about it and you didn't put enough safeguards in place. So that's why the stocks have dropped in the last week or so, but they've been dropping for ages, and that's because of this AI scare that we've been looking at. Google are the best in class. So they own everything. They own the search, they own the AI, they own the infrastructure, whereas Meta have got to go and use other people's data centers. They haven't got their own. They're spending huge amounts of their cash, but they do make a huge amount on their ads. So a good company, possibly an investment that could make more money for you, but it's got much higher risk attached to it because YouTube and Alphabet and Google don't need to do too much to actually just turn this whole loss around and just start going up again.
That's why we have Tech Tuesday and Tech Thursdays, because Liam knows these things and he writes articles and we put them up on our platform. Make sure you check them every Tuesday and Thursday. Liam also mentioned Norsk Hydro, Hans-Henrik, and that's another little pain that we have. I thought I gave Liam the pain with Micron. You get the pain with Norsk Hydro because basically, Hans-Henrik, we called Norsk Hydro in regards to the Strait of Hormuz because they are producers of aluminium. We went into them. We also went out because it broke our rule. And what happened?
Yeah, well, that is the annoying part. That sometimes there's no perfect strategy, and that means that what we have prioritized is we don't want too large a drawdown. We don't want too much volatility. That also means that sometimes when we get out of a stock like Norsk Hydro, we bought it, I think it was somewhere here, and then it went down. It broke our 50-day moving average. We're here for an extra day, and then it broke further down, and we sold it. and there must be someone spying on me. The second I sold it, it started to go back up, and we have not really been able to get a good entry point since then. Yesterday we bought another stock in the same space, but what were our logic here was that aluminium cannot, something like 12% of the world's aluminium comes out of Hormuz, the Strait of Hormuz, and that means it cannot come out there. Norsk Hydro owns they have some hydropower, which is good because aluminium takes a lot of power. So the logic behind this was sound, and everything, it was a good quality, the trend was good, everything. There was some days where all of a sudden aluminium fell. No one could really tell why, but it did, and we were sent out. But we went into a stock, and it's actually nicely up today as well, the one we entered yesterday in the same industry.
And no doubt that Norway had an amazing day yesterday. Norsk Hydro went up by almost 10%. Equinor went up, and Kongsberg, in general, it just threw the index up by more than 3%. Good for Norway in that sense. Danish index were not too far behind. And if you didn't know it, you should almost think that the crisis were over, but that's not the situation, because we are in for a little bit of a ride here, in that sense that we have a war going on in the Middle East, and the energy crisis going to drag on for quite a bit. The markets are down. Liam, tonight, 7 o'clock, the two of us are up for a little talk in regards to how to handle a crisis like this and how to stick with your strategy, because sometimes the best advice is to sit on your hands. And as you can see with my hands, it's hard to do.
You can try, or just put them over your mouth or something like that.
You're small part Italian. You cannot.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, yeah, very small part. Yeah, the crisis side of things, sitting on your hands. Yeah, being in cash is a position. Not having any investments is a position, or looking more at the defensive stocks and understanding the macro events that are going on around you and how they're going to affect the different industries and sectors that we look at. That's what we're going to be focusing on tonight, is looking at how those two go hand in hand, and how we provide that sort of information to people a lot of the time, just so that, because it's a big complex area, and we spend a lot of time, all three of us, looking at the geopolitical events that shape the investment side of things, and that's what we do for people.
And then, of course, we also look a lot at the news. We just don't react the same way that investors sometimes do, that they invest straight on the news. But a headline I saw, Hans-Henrik, in regards to the Chinese stock exchange, was that the bigger banks are moving in that direction. We have a hard time seeing that. But if we just hang on to the headline for a little bit, how can we get to invest in Chinese stocks without being able to buy on the Chinese exchange?
It is true. We can buy on a Hong Kong exchange, or some people can, but there is a currency issue. Then we can buy on the US exchange, where we are buying what is called ADRs, which is kind of a copy of the stock certificate. However, I think if people want to get exposed towards China, there is an ETF. It's called, the ticker symbol is FXC. That is the 50 largest stocks, Chinese stocks, on the Hong Kong exchange. There's also an ETF covering 50 of the largest on what's called mainland China. It's a bit of difference, but this one, this is the Baidu and the Alibaba and the Tencent and all these sort of stocks. However, I have a hard time seeing. I saw the headline saying big banks are moving towards China. It's not in the 50 largest stocks, it seems, because right now, and that is what we look for, it is downtrend. And when the 50 largest stocks are trending down, the largest banks are not in there. You could get that little suspicion that it's a rumor they want to, maybe they have a lot of Chinese stocks they want to sell. I have no idea. I'm not going into China right now with a trend like this, for sure.
Well, you clearly don't have time for it either, because you have to watch football tonight when Denmark is trying to make their way to the World Cup. I know, Liam, it's not going to interest any Irish, because as far as I can recollect, you're out at this moment. But this part you will love, Liam. I know that. This is a service for people going to the World Cup. These are the most popular beer brands in the United States of America. The one that sells the most is Bud Light. I'm not going to say anything about the quality in that beer, but it sells more than 22.8 million barrels a year. And for those who doesn't know how much a barrel is, it's 117 liters, about 13 and a half case of beer, or as you Brits understand it, 248 pints of beer in one barrel.
The proper way of measuring beer.
Yeah,
as,
exactly.
as Liam would say, a good night in town.
Yeah, exactly. And number 2 on that list is a Modelo, a Mexican beer. Then we have Michelob, and then we go further and further down the list. Enough beer for a proper World Cup if the Brits should qualify, but it's not going to be the Irish. We'll see about the Danes tonight. But Liam, you and I, we have almost a date at 7 o'clock. We're going to talk about crisis situation for your stock portfolio, how to handle that, and how to prepare yourself for things to come. Take a look tonight, 7 o'clock. We'll be on for an hour. We'll be done before the game with Denmark and Czech Republic later. And then, of course, we're coming up on Easter. That means that a lot of things are not like it's normally is. That means that the Norwegian Stock Exchange closes after half a day tomorrow on Wednesday. Danish closed on Thursday and Friday, and on Monday as well. Liam, set the situation for the UK Stock Exchange. How are you open over Easter?
We close on Thursday. We're open on Friday and Monday. So Thursday, I'll just be, don't worry about it, everyone. I'll just be keeping things going and just keeping the stock market hopefully up.
Oh, okay. You'll do it on your own. That sounds good. But
that beer to drink. That's
22.8 million barrels of beer have you put yourself up. But please don't do it before the show tonight. We are on at 7 o'clock, and then we will be back tomorrow in Danish at 12 o'clock tomorrow on Wednesday before we go to Easter. So please do be part of our show tonight. Write us an email, FOMO@MyStockScanner.com. We'll take a look at your questions if you have any, or else Liam will keep you posted and keep you definitely safe in regards to the crisis in your portfolio. Come with good tips for you. Guys, always a pleasure. We shall see each other on the other side of Easter. Have a good one. Enjoy.